My daughter-in-law surprised me with a luxurious trip to Rome. As I was packing my bags for this dream trip, our maid suddenly grabbed me by the shoulder. "Sir, please don't go. Trust me, it's a trap." I pretended to leave, but hid at a neighbor's house. An hour later, a black van pulled up, and I froze in shock when I saw who got out of it. Before continuing, subscribe to the channel, and write in the comments what time it is in your region right now. The morning of May 15th started like any other in Charleston. I'd been up since 6, taking my usual walk through the historic district, letting the humid coastal air clear my head. After Margaret died 3 years ago, these walks became my therapy. 68 years old, retired federal prosecutor, living alone in a house too big for one person. Or so my son Greg and his wife Ava kept reminding me. I'd spent 35 years putting criminals behind bars. Embezzlers, con artists, murderers, I'd seen them all. Built my career on reading people, spotting inconsistencies. Those skills don't switch off just because you collect a pension. I pushed open the front door around 8:30. The voices stopped immediately. That's the first thing I noticed, the abrupt silence. Greg and Ava were huddled at the dining table, papers spread between them. When they saw me, Ava swept everything into a manila folder with practiced efficiency. "Morning, Kenneth," she said, flashing that smile that never quite reached her eyes. "We were just discussing some household matters." "Household matters. In my house." Greg shifted uncomfortably. "Dad, we live here too. We're just trying to help manage things." I'd heard that phrase a lot lately. 3 years ago, after Margaret's funeral, they'd moved in temporarily. Greg had promised it would be just a few months. That arrangement had somehow become permanent. The day dragged on with tension I couldn't name. I spent most of it in my study, pretending to read but actually listening to their whispered conversations that stopped whenever I walked by, their phone calls taken behind closed doors, old habits from prosecuting cases. Dinner that evening was worse. Ava had cooked. She always cooked now, insisting I was too tired to handle it myself. "Kenneth, you really should consider downsizing," she said, cutting her food with precise movements. "This house is nearly 4,000 square feet. The maintenance alone must be exhausting for someone your age." "I'm 68, not 90. "Of course not. But realistically, how much longer can you manage stairs? The upkeep? The property taxes on a historic home must be overwhelming. What are they now? 30,000 a year?" 32,000, actually. Interesting that she knew to ask. Greg nodded along. "My son, the yes man. 37 years old, and he couldn't stand up for himself. When had he become so weak?" "The house is fine," I said flatly. "I'm fine." Ava's smile tightened. "We're just concerned. You forget things sometimes. Last week you couldn't remember where you put your car keys." "I found them in my jacket pocket, where I always put them." After looking for 20 minutes, I set down my fork carefully. "Is there something you want to say to me directly, Ava?" "Of course not." Her voice dripped with false sweetness. "We only want what's best for you. Greg and I have been discussing options. There are some wonderful assisted living facilities in the area. Very upscale, very comfortable. We could schedule some tours. I don't need assisted living. Not now, maybe. But it's something to think about. Plan ahead." She glanced at Greg, who nodded on cue. After dinner, I retreated to my study. The house felt different now, like wearing a coat that no longer fit. I was reviewing old case files when I heard Ava's voice from the hallway. She was on her phone, speaking quietly. My prosecutor's instincts kicked in. I moved closer to the door, careful to avoid the floorboard that creaked. "He's being stubborn about it," she was saying. "No, not yet. He's still mentally sharp enough to—" I know. He's been here too long. We need to do something." My blood went cold. "Soon?" she continued. I could hear her pacing. "We can't wait much longer. The opportunity won't last forever. Once he signs—" "What?" "No, he hasn't changed the will yet. I've been watching. But we need to move before he does." She moved away, footsteps fading toward the master bedroom. I stood frozen, mind racing through possibilities. They couldn't mean what I thought they meant. Could they? I looked around at my office. The same desk where I'd prepared cases that put away embezzlers, fraudsters, murderers. The walls lined with commendations, photos of Margaret smiling at our 30th anniversary. Greg at his graduation. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd spent 35 years prosecuting criminals, and now I might have two living under my own roof. That night, I barely slept. Every creak sounded sinister. Every shadow seemed to move. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling fan, telling myself I was being paranoid. Greg was my son, my only child. He wouldn't... But that voice, Ava's voice, cold, calculating, talking about me like I was an obstacle to be removed. By dawn, I'd made a decision. If they wanted to play games, they'd pick the wrong man. I hadn't spent decades in federal court to be outmaneuvered by my daughter-in-law. Whatever they were planning, I'd be ready. I'd build my case the way I always had, methodically, with evidence that couldn't be disputed. The question was, how far were they willing to go? The next morning, I couldn't shake Ava's phone call. "He's been here too long. We need to do something." I sat at my desk until the memories started surfacing, old ones I'd deliberately filed away under family and don't cause trouble. February, 3 months ago. Unauthorized charges on my credit card, $4,200 worth. Designer clothes, expensive dinners, a weekend spa package at Kiowa Island. When I confronted Ava, she'd given me those wide, innocent eyes. "Kenneth, those were household expenses. Family expenses. You approved them, remember? You're forgetting things more often lately. It's natural at your age." Greg had backed her up immediately. "Dad, she showed you the receipts last month. You said it was fine." Had I? The doubt planted itself. Maybe I was forgetting. But $4,200 for household expenses? Still, I'd let it go. They were family. You trust family? Fool. Then there was Margaret's silver, her grandmother's sterling silver flatware set, passed down through 3 generations, worth about $8,000, but the sentimental value was priceless. Margaret had cried when her mother gave it to her on our wedding day. One day in March, I'd opened the dining room cabinet and found the velvet case empty. "Ava, where's Margaret's silver?" She'd been arranging flowers, hadn't even looked up. "Oh, I took it to be professionally cleaned. It was tarnishing badly. You really should have taken better care of it, Kenneth." Without asking me. She'd finally looked at me, perfectly calibrated between hurt and indignation. "Kenneth, I was doing you a favor. You should be thanking me, not interrogating me like I'm one of your criminals." That stung. But she was right, wasn't she? I was being ungrateful, except the silver never came back. When I asked a week later, Ava claimed the shop was taking longer than expected. 2 months later, she admitted they'd lost track of it. Lost. An $8,000 family heirloom, my wife's most treasured possession, just gone. And I'd actually thanked Ava for trying to help. The memory made me sick. Last month, I'd found torn papers in the trash. Not just torn, shredded. Years of reconstructing evidence taught me patience. I spent an hour piecing them together. Letters from my estate attorney, Colin Webster. Important letters about updating my will, discussing asset distribution. My house valued at $2.8 million. My investments totaling $850,000. My life insurance policy worth $500,000. All laid out in legal language, now shredded and thrown away. I'd confronted them at breakfast. "Either of you know anything about these?" Ava barely glanced at the taped papers. "Oh, those. They look like junk mail. I was clearing clutter. This house is drowning in paper, Kenneth." "These are from my attorney." "Well, how was I supposed to know? You really should go digital. It's 2025. Greg had laughed. Actually laughed. Now, in the morning light of May 16th, I saw the pattern. Not isolated incidents. A campaign. The credit card charges. Testing my awareness. My willingness to fight back. When I didn't push hard, they learned I could be manipulated. The missing silver. Removing assets. Seeing if I'd investigate. When I accepted the lost at the shop story, they learned I could be lied to. The destroyed documents. Intercepting communication with my attorney. Keeping me isolated. Making sure I didn't update my will. Each incident building on the last. Testing, probing, preparing. But for what? I pulled up property records, houses comparable to mine, $2.7 to $3.1 million. My place was worth $2.8 million easily. My investments, $850,000. My federal pension, $6,200 monthly. Life insurance, $500,000 with Greg as beneficiary. Total assets, Nearly $4.2 million, more than enough reason for someone desperate to do something terrible. The answer hit me. Everything. They wanted everything. Not later, when I died naturally. Now, immediately. My hands shook with rage. My own son, the boy I'd coached in Little League, helped through college, stood beside at his wedding. Greg had brought this viper into my home, and they were circling like I was already dead. But I wasn't just some confused old man. I was Kenneth Harrison, federal prosecutor. I'd taken down organized crime figures, corrupt politicians, con artists who'd fooled hundreds. If they wanted war, they declared it on the wrong man. I opened a fresh document and started documenting. Every incident, every red flag, dates, amounts, witnesses, evidence. Because that's what prosecutors do, build cases brick by brick. February 12th, unauthorized charges, $4,200. Explanation implausible. March 8th, Margaret Silver disappears. Value, $8,000. Story inconsistent. April 15th, legal documents destroyed. Letters from attorney regarding will. May 15th, overheard conversation. He's been here too long. We need to do something. They thought I was vulnerable. An old man, grieving, maybe slipping mentally. Easy to manipulate, easy to control, easy to remove. They were about to learn, never underestimate your opponent, especially when he spent 35 years learning to think like a criminal while prosecuting them, and never try to con a federal prosecutor in his own home. I saved the document, encrypted it, backed it up to cloud storage. Then I sat back and allowed myself a cold smile, the kind I used to give defense attorneys when I had them cornered. Game on? By May 18th, I couldn't ignore the pattern anymore. 3 days of turning it over in my mind, and the conclusion was unavoidable. I needed hard evidence, not suspicions, not instincts. Facts, numbers, the kind of proof that holds up in court. I drove to my bank on King Street that morning, the historic facades of Charleston passing by in a blur. 35 years in federal prosecution had taught me one thing: follow the money. Always follow the money. The bank manager, a pleasant woman named Sandra, directed me to Atticus Green, a senior accounts specialist. He was maybe 50, graying at the temples, with the careful manner of someone who'd seen too many financial disasters. Mr. Harrison, good to see you. What can I help with today? I need a complete account review. All transactions for the past 6 months. Every withdrawal, every transfer, everything. Something flickered in his eyes. Of course. Give me a moment. I sat in the small glass office while he typed. Through the window I could see people going about their normal lives, getting cash, depositing checks, living in a world where their own children weren't robbing them blind. Here we are. Atticus slid the printouts across the desk. Pages and pages of transactions. Then he paused, studying the documents. His finger traced down a column of numbers. Mr. Harrison. He hesitated, that careful tone people use when they're about to deliver bad news. I see quite a few large cash withdrawals here. Are you certain all of these were authorized by you? I scanned the pages. My hands went cold despite the warm office. February 3rd, 8,500. February 28th, 12,000. March 15th, 9,200. March 29th, 14,300. April 10th, 11,600. April 24th, 11,400. The numbers swam before my eyes. I did the math automatically, a skill honed from years of calculating damages and stolen assets in court cases. That's $67,000. My voice sounded distant, like it belonged to someone else. Yes, sir. Atticus pulled out another sheet. And I see your signature on the authorization forms, but... He stopped. But what? Forgive me, this is delicate. Sometimes family members have access to accounts for elderly relatives. For legitimate purposes, of course. But occasionally... He let the sentence hang. I looked at the signatures. They were mine. Except they weren't. Close, very close. But the capital H in Harrison was slightly different. The flourish at the end of the N was too pronounced. I'd signed my name tens of thousands of times on legal documents. I knew every stroke. These are forgeries. Atticus looked uncomfortable but didn't argue. I can't make that determination officially, but if you're stating that you didn't authorize these withdrawals, I'm stating exactly that. How is this possible? Don't you have security protocols? We do. But if someone has your account information, knows your patterns, and has access to your home address and personal documents. He spread his hands. It's not impossible, especially if it's someone you trust. Trust. That word again. The word that had cost me $67,000. I want all accounts frozen immediately. New passwords, new security questions, everything. And I want to know who made these withdrawals. Cameras, timestamps, whatever you have. Of course, I'll start the process right away. He typed rapidly. Mr. Harrison, I have to ask, do you want to file a police report? This is theft. Not yet. Not until I knew the full extent. Not until I had every piece of evidence locked down tight. Let me think about it. Right now, just secure the accounts. Done. As of this moment, no one can access your funds without you physically present with photo ID. Is there anything else? Yes. Don't mention this to anyone who calls or comes in asking about me. No information to anyone, family or otherwise. Understood? He nodded gravely. Understood. I drove home in a daze. $67,000. Gone. Stolen by my own son and his wife systematically over 6 months. That was on top of the $4,200 in credit card charges, the $8,000 in stolen silver. They'd taken nearly $80,000 from me, and I'd been too trusting, too grief-stricken, too stupid to notice. No, not stupid. They'd calculated this, picked their moment, moved in after Margaret died when I was vulnerable, isolated me, made me doubt myself, gaslit me into thinking I was forgetful, losing my edge. I parked in my driveway and sat there for 5 minutes, gripping the steering wheel. Through the window I could see Ava in the kitchen, probably planning what to cook for dinner, playing the dutiful daughter-in-law while she bled me dry. Inside, I went straight to my study. Neither of them looked up from the living room where they were watching television, like they hadn't just stolen enough money to buy a luxury car. I locked my study door and opened my encrypted document, added the new information with dates, amounts, and account numbers. The evidence file was growing, each entry another nail in their coffin. But evidence wasn't enough. I needed to know what they were planning next, because $67,000 wasn't going to satisfy them. Not with a house worth $2.8 million and investments totaling $850,000 still in play. This was just the appetizer. They thought I was confused, forgetful, easy to manipulate. They were about to learn the most important rule I'd taught young prosecutors for 3 decades. Never underestimate your opponent, and always assume they know more than they're showing. Time to stop being the victim. Time to become the prosecutor again. That night, May 18th, I couldn't sleep. Not from stress this time, but from planning. Old habits rising like muscle memory. How do you build an unbeatable case? You gather evidence so overwhelming that even the best defense attorney can't spin it. But first, I needed to know what they were saying when they thought I couldn't hear. The next morning, I drove to an electronics store across town where nobody knew me, bought a recording app for my phone. In South Carolina, it's legal to record conversations when you're protecting your own property from theft. I'd prosecuted enough cases involving wiretaps to know the law inside out. That evening, I played my part. Tired old Kenneth, shuffling off to bed at 9 o'clock. I even made a show of taking my reading glasses off, rubbing my eyes. "Long day," I muttered to no one in particular. "Sleep well, Kenneth," Ava said sweetly from the couch. I climbed the stairs slowly, went to my room, closed the door. Then I opened it just a crack, activated the recording app, and positioned my phone on the hallway table where it could pick up voices from downstairs. I sat in the darkness of my room. Door cracked, listening. For 20 minutes, nothing. Just the sound of the television. Then Ava's voice, sharp and impatient. "He went to the bank today." My blood pressure spiked. How did she know? "So?" Greg's voice, uncertain as always. "So he was gone for over an hour. That's not normal. He usually just uses the ATM. Maybe he had questions about something. Or maybe he's checking the accounts." A pause. "We need to speed this up." "Ava, I don't know." "You don't know? You don't know?" Her voice rose, then dropped to an angry whisper. "Your father is sitting on millions. We're drowning in debt, and you don't know? If that old fool doesn't add you to his will as the sole beneficiary soon, we'll have to do something else." "Like what?" Greg sounded scared. "I don't know yet, but if he's getting suspicious, we can't wait around. Maybe we need to push things along. I can't just, I can't. Then I'll find someone who can. I have contacts, Greg. People who solve problems for the right price. Contacts? People who solve problems. I felt ice water in my veins. This wasn't just theft anymore. This was something darker. Jesus, Ava, I'm talking about survival. Do you want to lose everything? Do you want your creditors showing up here? Because they will, Greg. They will find us, and they will take everything, and your father will finally know what a failure you really are. Silence. Then Greg, barely audible. He already knows. I heard footsteps. Someone going upstairs. I slipped back from the door, eased it closed, and stood in the darkness of my room. Phone still recording in the hallway. They thought I was asleep. Harmless. A problem to be solved. The next morning, May 20th, I made a phone call I should have made days ago. To Charlie Bowman, a man I'd worked with 15 years ago when he was a young detective with the Charleston PD. Now he ran his own private investigation firm. Kenneth Harrison, I'll be damned. How are you, counselor? Been better, Charlie. I need your help. Privately. Name it. We met at a coffee shop in Mount Pleasant, away from Charleston's historic center. Charlie looked older, don't we all, but his eyes were still sharp. You don't lose that cop instinct. I laid it out for him. Everything. The stolen money, the forged signatures, the credit card fraud, the missing silver, the overheard conversations. I didn't mention the recording yet. Wanted to see what he found independently. Charlie listened without interrupting, taking notes on a small pad. When I finished, he sat back and whistled softly. Your own son. My own son, I confirmed. What do you want me to do? Background check on both of them. Deep dive. Finances, employment history, criminal records, associates, everything. I need to know who I'm dealing with. You're dealing with your son, Kenneth. No. I met his eyes. I'm dealing with two people who are stealing from me and plotting something worse. They might be family, but right now, they're suspects. Treat them accordingly. Charlie nodded slowly. Okay. I'll need a few days. Maybe a week for the complete picture. Take what you need. Be thorough. And Charlie, I know. Discretion. More than discretion. Invisibility. They can't know I'm investigating. Understood. He slid his coffee cup aside. Kenneth, I have to ask. Are you prepared for what I might find? I'm prepared for the truth, whatever it is. We shook hands. I drove back to Charleston feeling something I hadn't felt in days. Control. I wasn't just reacting anymore. I was building a case, gathering evidence, preparing for battle. That's what Greg and Ava didn't understand. They'd declared war on a federal prosecutor, someone who'd spent 35 years learning how to dismantle criminal enterprises piece by piece. Someone who knew how to be patient, methodical, and absolutely ruthless when necessary. They thought they were playing chess with a confused old man. They were actually in a courtroom with a prosecutor who'd never lost a major case. At home that evening, I smiled at them over dinner, complimented Ava's cooking, asked Greg about his day with genuine-sounding interest, played the role perfectly. Underneath, I was counting evidence, recording conversations, building timelines, documenting everything. In federal court, we had a saying. The defendant doesn't know they've lost until the verdict is read, but the prosecutor knows from the moment the evidence is strong enough. I already knew. They just hadn't figured it out yet. The war had started, and they'd already lost. The week of May 21st to 26th was the longest of my life. Waiting, watching, playing oblivious Kenneth while Charlie sent updates. His report arrived May 23rd via encrypted email. I read it in my locked study, hands trembling with rage. Greg had lost his job at First Horizon Bank in May 2024, over a year ago. Not laid off, fired, for financial irregularities. He'd been skimming from elderly client accounts, $500 here, $300 there. They caught him at $12,000, gave him a choice, resign quietly or face criminal charges. Since then, nothing. No job whatsoever. Every morning for the past year, Greg put on a suit, grabbed his briefcase, and pretended to go to work. Where did he go? Coffee shops, the library, anywhere but an actual office, living entirely off me, every meal, every bill, paid by the man he was planning to murder. Current debts, according to Charlie's investigation, $43,000. Credit cards maxed at 28,000 Heiselners. Payday loans at $15,000 with predatory interest rates. Ava's name was on most of it. They'd been juggling payments, robbing Peter to pay Paul, sinking deeper every month. They were desperate, drowning financially. And I wasn't their life raft. My death was. Charlie's report also included phone records, multiple calls to burner phones that couldn't be traced, late-night calls from Ava's cell, short duration, under 2 minutes, the kind of calls you make when you're arranging something illegal. Location data showed Ava had visited a sketchy part of North Charleston 3 times in 2 weeks, the kind of neighborhood where you don't go unless you're buying drugs or hiring someone for something you shouldn't be hiring them for. May 24th evening, I sat in my study examining these documents when I heard footsteps. I quickly closed the folder, hid it under old legal pads. "Kenneth?" Ava's voice, soft, tender, the voice she'd probably practiced in mirrors. "Come in." She entered with a gift box wrapped in burgundy paper with a gold bow. Hair and makeup perfect. Cream blouse, tailored pants. This was clearly a rehearsed performance. "I need to talk to you." She sat in the leather chair across from my desk, setting the box between us like a peace offering. "I know things have been difficult lately. Between us. The tension, the arguments, and I want to take full responsibility for my part." I said nothing, just watched her performance with the detached interest of a prosecutor watching a defendant take the stand and dig their own grave. "The truth is, I've been under enormous stress. We both have, Greg and I. Financial pressures, personal issues, and I've been taking it out on you, which is completely unfair. You've been nothing but generous, letting us live in your beautiful home, and I've been—" She paused, eyes glistening with what looked like real tears. "Impressive. I've been ungrateful, terrible, really." She slid the box toward me with both hands. "What's this?" "Open it, please." I pulled the ribbon, lifted the lid. Inside, airline tickets in a leather wallet, hotel confirmations on thick paper, detailed itineraries, Rome, the Hotel de Russi, 5-star near the Spanish Steps. Departure May 27th, 3 days away. Return May 30th. Rome? I looked up, letting confusion show. "You always talked about wanting to see the Colosseum, remember? Last Christmas dinner you mentioned how Margaret wanted to take you there, but you never made the time. Well, Greg and I," she smiled, brushing away a tear, "we've been saving. We wanted to do something really special, a meaningful apology." My heart pounded. This was it. The trap. Perfectly baited with my own dreams. I don't know what to say. This must have cost— "Don't worry about cost, Kenneth. You're worth it. You've given us so much. Including $80,000 you've stolen," I thought. "This is incredibly generous. You deserve it, after everything." She leaned forward, earnest, her hand touching mine. Cold skin. "Say you'll go. Please. It would mean the world to know you've forgiven us, that we can start fresh." Behind her, Greg appeared in the doorway, perfectly timed, smiling weakly, nodding, playing his part. I don't know what to say. I let my voice crack slightly. Elderly Kenneth moved to tears. "Thank you, both of you, truly." Ava stood, came around the desk, hugged me. I felt her cold hands on my shoulders, smelled her Chanel, probably bought with my stolen money. "Pack light," she whispered near my ear. "You're going to have the time of your life." The time of my life? The last time of my life, she meant. After they left, chatting about Rome and travel plans, I sat examining the tickets. They were absolutely real. Legitimate Delta booking. Flight 1247, Charleston to Rome via JFK. Hotel reservation with my name. They'd spent actual money, probably $5,000. A small investment for a $3.6 million inheritance. I called Charlie immediately, voice low. "They just gave me a trip to Rome. Leaving day after tomorrow. 3 days?" Long silence. "Kenneth, they need me gone 3 days minimum, long enough to kill me and stage it however they want. Then when I'm supposed to return from my lovely vacation, they report me missing. Oh, he must have had an accident in Rome. Got lost, had a stroke. They'll play the worried family. Meanwhile, my body is wrapped in a carpet in the Congaree swamp. Do not get on that plane." "I won't, but they can't know I know. They have to believe their plan is working perfectly. What exactly are you thinking? I need to see what they do when they think I'm safely out of the country. I need them to make their move with me watching and recording. Incontrovertible video evidence. Kenneth, that's dangerous. If they realize you're still here. I spent 35 years prosecuting dangerous people, Charlie. I know what I'm doing. Did I, though? Standing there with Rome tickets in hand, and the reality that my own son was methodically planning my murder, I wasn't sure I knew anything anymore. Except this one thing. They'd made their move, shown their hand. Now it was my turn, and prosecutors always save their best evidence for last. May 26th, day before my scheduled flight. I woke at dawn, mind already racing through contingencies, backup plans, potential problems. The house was quiet. Greg and Ava presumably still asleep, or lying awake reviewing their murder plans. I packed loudly with deliberate slowness. Opened drawers where anyone passing might see. Folded clothes with exaggerated care. Added my blood pressure medications to the bathroom counter, leaving the orange bottles clearly visible. Every detail had to sell the performance. Kenneth Harrison, excited elderly man, preparing for his dream vacation. Greg and Ava left around 9. Last-minute errands before your trip, Ava announced brightly over breakfast. Getting things to make the house nice for when you get back. Getting things? Like probably paying the final installment to their hired killers. Take your time, I said pleasantly. I'll be fine finishing my packing. They exchanged one of their looks. Greg nervous, Ava cold and confident. Then they were gone. I was alone with Consuelo, our housekeeper. I could feel her tension from 2 rooms away. I was in my bedroom, triple-checking my phone's camera settings, when I heard soft, hesitant footsteps. Too light to be Greg or Ava. Mr. Harrison? Consuelo Martinez stood in my doorway. 52, from Honduras. She'd worked for us 8 years. Through Margaret's long illness, the funeral, those horrible, hollow months when I couldn't function. She'd quietly cleaned around me while I sat motionless in my study for hours, never making me feel like a burden. Right now she looked absolutely terrified, face pale, drained of color, hands visibly shaking as they gripped her dustcloth. Consuelo, what's wrong? Please, Mr. Harrison. She glanced nervously over her shoulder, then came in and closed the door. Please don't go on this trip tomorrow. Don't get on that airplane. I stopped. Why? What happened? Just trust me. Please. Something is very wrong. Sit down. Take a breath and tell me exactly what happened. She sat on the edge of the chair, tears already starting. Yesterday afternoon, I was cleaning the guest bathroom upstairs. Mrs. Ava was on her phone in the bedroom. The door was almost closed, but not completely. She didn't know I was there. What did she say? Consuelo's voice dropped to barely a whisper. She said, he flies out tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. sharp. The house will be completely empty for 3 full days, maybe 4. Come on the 27th after dark, evening time between 8 and 9. Do everything very quickly. The carpet for transportation, I will leave it already rolled up in the garage where it's easy to find. My blood turned to ice. Carpet for transportation? Consuelo's eyes were huge. Mr. Harrison, what does that mean? Why would someone need a carpet to transport something? Because you wrap a dead body in it, I thought, so neighbors don't see what you're carrying out. What else did you hear? She said, make absolutely sure there's no mess at all, no blood anywhere, no evidence left behind. Then she was quiet, listening. Then she said, yes, $25,000 total, $12,500 now like we agreed, and the other $12,500 when everything is completely finished. Then she ended the call very quickly. $25,000, the going rate for murder for hire. Is there more, Consuelo? Yes. 2 days ago, Monday, I went to the grocery store. On my way back, I stopped at the Citadel Mall to use the restroom. In the parking lot, I saw Mrs. Ava standing next to a black van with 2 men. What did they look like? Big men, very muscular. One had tattoos going up his neck. The other wore all black. They looked dangerous, Mr. Harrison. Not good people. While I watched from my car, Mrs. Ava gave them a brown envelope. Thick. One opened it and started counting. I saw money. Cash. Many, many bills. She grabbed my arm, grip surprisingly strong. I don't know exactly what they're planning, but I know it's something very, very bad. Evil. Please, you have to believe me. Don't go on this trip. I looked at this woman who'd quietly observed my household for 8 years, who'd seen things she didn't understand, but knew in her bones were wrong, who was risking everything to warn me. I believe you, Consuelo. Every single word. And what you just told me may have saved my life. Her eyes went wider. What are you going to do? I'm going to handle this properly. But I need you to do exactly as I say. Act completely normal around both of them. Don't let them suspect for 1 second that you told me anything. Can you do that? She nodded, wiping tears. One more thing. After I leave tomorrow, take the entire week off. Go visit your sister in Colombia, like you've been planning. Don't come back until I personally call you. It won't be safe here. Yes, Mr. Harrison, I understand. And Consuelo, thank you for your courage. After she left, I sat on my bed with my phone, mind clicking through final pieces. Carpet for transportation. 2 dangerous men. 25,000 in cash. No mess. No blood. This wasn't paranoia anymore. This was an active murder-for-hire plot in its final stages. I called Robert Miller, my neighbor. 75, retired dentist. Lived next door for 15 years. Robert, I need an urgent favor. Somewhat unusual. Can I come over right now? Through the back where no one will see? 20 minutes later, I was in Robert's den explaining everything. The theft. The debts. Charlie's investigation. Consuelo's warning. Robert listened without interrupting, his face growing graver. Kenneth, I can hardly believe it. Your own son. I need to catch them in the act. Video evidence of them bringing hired criminals into my house, but I can't be there. They have to believe I'm on a plane to Rome. You want to watch from here. Your living room window has a perfect view of my front entrance. I can see and record everything. It's the only way to get proof that holds up in court. Of course you can stay. Our guest room is yours. He paused. But shouldn't you call the police now? Tell them what you know? And tell them what? That I'm suspicious of a gift? That my housekeeper overheard something? Police need probable cause for warrants. But if I capture video of known criminals entering my house while they think I'm out of the country, that's not suspicion. That's evidence. Conspiracy to commit murder. Attempted murder. He nodded slowly, understanding. What do you need? Just a dark room to watch from, and absolute discretion. Not even Eleanor can know I'm here. We agreed Eleanor would be told I was at an airport hotel. At 4 p.m., I made a deliberate show of calling a taxi from my front porch, where anyone watching would see. Fumbled, obviously, with my suitcase. Waved to Tom Wheeler trimming hedges across the street. Off to Rome, the eternal city. See you in a few days. Don't let the neighborhood fall apart without me. The taxi pulled up. I loaded my suitcase with visible effort, climbed slowly in. As we drove away, I looked back one final time. Ava stood in the upstairs window, phone pressed to her ear, watching me leave with intense focus, making the call right at that moment. Probably telling someone, he just left. The target is gone. Tomorrow night, after dark, the house is completely yours. The taxi took me on a normal route toward the airport, then doubled back and dropped me at Robert's back entrance. I slipped inside like a ghost. By 7 p.m., as the sun set over Charleston, I was positioned in Robert's dark living room, chair pulled to the window, my house perfectly visible across our yards, maybe 50 feet away, phone fully charged, camera tested, recording app ready, backup battery in my pocket. All I had to do was wait for them to spring their trap, wait to see how close I'd come to ending up wrapped in carpet, dumped in the Congaree swamp, another missing person case never solved. The sun set. Lights came on in my house. Through the windows I could see Greg and Ava moving around, preparing for my murder. May 27th, 7:30 p.m. I sat in Robert Miller's darkened living room, chair positioned directly at the window. My house, 50 feet away across our adjoining yards, looked peaceful. Lights glowing warmly, Greg and Ava moving around inside, probably congratulating themselves on their perfect plan. I checked my phone for the 10th time. Battery at 100%. Camera function tested and ready. Recording app activated. Backup portable battery in my pocket. Everything prepared. Robert had retreated to his bedroom to give me privacy. Eleanor thought I was staying at an airport hotel for my early morning flight. Just me, the darkness, and my phone camera pointed steadily at my own front door. My heart hammered against my ribs. Prosecutor's instinct told me they'd come. Consuelo's warning had been too specific, too detailed. But actually sitting here, waiting to watch my own murder play out with a substitute victim, a carpet, apparently, felt surreal. 8:15 p.m. Still nothing. Greg and Ava were visible in the kitchen through the window, talking, gesturing, probably reviewing the timing. When would the killers arrive? When would they leave? How long does it take to dump a body? I took a slow breath, steadied myself. 35 years prosecuting criminals had taught me patience. Evidence comes to those who wait. 8:30, then 8:45, then 9 hacks. At exactly 9:02 p.m., a black van rolled down our quiet street. No headlights. It slowed deliberately, then stopped directly in front of my house. No license plate visible on the front bumper. Here we go. I raised my phone, started recording video. My hands were surprisingly steady, decades of courtroom work kicking in. 2 men climbed out of the van, both large, muscular builds. One wore a black hoodie, the other a dark jacket. They moved with purpose, not hesitation. Professionals. They'd done this kind of thing before. Ava opened the front door before they could knock. Smart move, less noise, fewer chances for neighbors to notice anything unusual. She stepped aside, gestured them in quickly. The door closed behind them. I zoomed the camera in as far as possible while keeping the image stable. Got clear shots of both men's faces in the porch light before the door shut. Good, identifiable. Now came the wait. What were they doing inside my house right now? Following Ava's instructions, probably. Finding the carpet she'd left rolled up in the garage, practicing how to carry it, making sure 2 men could handle the weight, convincingly, if any neighbors happened to see them loading it. Minutes crawled by with agonizing slowness. 9:10, 9:15, 9:25. My phone kept recording, battery slowly ticking down. At 9:43 p.m., my front door opened again. The 2 men emerged, carrying a large rolled carpet between them. Navy blue color, maybe 8 feet long, thick enough to conceal a body, heavy enough that both men strained visibly under the weight, muscles tensing. Ice water flooded through my veins. That carpet, that was supposed to be me. Wrapped up, anonymous, disposable. Driven to some godforsaken corner of the Congaree swamp and dumped like yesterday's trash. My son and his wife standing there watching, making absolutely sure the job got done correctly. The men loaded the carpet efficiently into the back of the van. Their movements were practiced, professional. They'd definitely done this before, probably multiple times. Greg appeared on the porch beside Ava, my son, actually watching hired killers dispose of what he believed was his father's body. His face looked pale in the porch light, but he was there, present, complicit, participating in my murder. The taller man, the one in the hoodie, turned back toward the house, said something to Ava I couldn't hear. She nodded, reached into her pocket, handed him something small. An envelope, probably? Final payment for services rendered. The men climbed back into the van. This time when they pulled away from the curb, I saw it clearly. The license plate. They'd attached it after loading their cargo. Professional criminals know that police look for vehicles without plates driving around at night. I captured absolutely everything on video. The plate number, the van's make and model, the men's faces. Greg and Ava standing on my front porch, watching the van disappear down the tree-lined street. As soon as the van turned the corner out of sight, Ava grabbed Greg's arm roughly, pulled him back inside the house. The door shut hard. Lights went off downstairs. Within just a few minutes, I saw the bedroom light upstairs come on. Going to bed. Sleeping soundly. Job well done. Problem permanently solved. I sat in the darkness. Phone still recording everything, hands shaking now. Not from fear, from pure, cold rage. From the crystalline clarity of knowing I'd been absolutely right. They'd actually done it. Hired professional killers. Planned my murder down to the smallest detail. Executed their plan while I was supposed to be sipping wine in Rome, completely unaware that I'd never make it home alive. I stopped the recording, checked the footage carefully. Clear, stable, unmistakable. Backed it up to cloud storage immediately, then made 2 more backup copies. Then I called Charlie Bowman. "Kenneth, you all right?" I just watched 2 men carry a carpet out of my house. The carpet that was supposed to have my body wrapped inside it. Long silence on the line. Then very carefully, "You got it on video?" "Every single second. Clear faces, license plate, everything. I need you to identify these men. Tonight, if possible. Send me the clearest screenshots you have. I'll run them through my databases immediately." I did. 3 minutes later, my phone buzzed with his response. "Kenneth, these guys are very bad news. Randy Sumner and Dean Walker. Both have extensive priors: assault, extortion, aggravated battery. Sumner did 8 years in Lieber Correctional. They're known associates of a major loan shark operation in North Charleston. Can you trace the phone records? Calls between Ava and either of them?" "Already working on it. Give me an hour." I ended the call and sat back in the darkness, still watching my house across the yard. My son and daughter-in-law sleeping peacefully upstairs after arranging my murder. 35 years in federal prosecution had shown me humanity's full capacity for evil. But you never truly expect to find it in your own family. You never think your own child could look directly at you and see nothing but a dollar figure, an obstacle, a problem to be permanently eliminated. Well, they'd made their move, shown their complete hand. Now it was my turn. And prosecutors don't just build cases. We systematically demolish defenses. Tomorrow I'd return from Rome, play the confused, grateful old man one final time. Let them panic. Let them wonder desperately what went wrong. Because they would make mistakes. Desperate people always do. That's exactly how we catch them. May 28th through 30th. 3 days that felt like 3 years. I stayed at Robert's house during my supposed trip to Rome. Charlie worked his contacts relentlessly. I coordinated everything from Robert's guest bedroom. By the end of day 1, we had concrete phone records, 12 separate calls between Ava's personal cell and Randy Sumner's burner phone over the past 3 weeks. Mall surveillance footage showed Ava handing Randy a thick envelope on May 24th, presumably the down payment. The pieces were falling into place with satisfying precision. May 29th, I called Colin Webster, my estate attorney. Though he specialized in property law now, he'd started his career in criminal defense. He understood both sides of the courtroom. "Colin, I need to see you, urgently and privately." His downtown office at 2 p.m. I brought absolutely everything. The video footage from May 27th showing the carpet being carried out. The phone records Charlie had pulled through his law enforcement contacts. The bank statements documenting the $67,000 theft. The audio recording of Ava threatening to find someone who can handle me if Greg wouldn't. Charlie's complete investigative report. Consuelo's notarized sworn statement about everything she'd overheard. Colin watched the video twice in complete silence, studied the phone records carefully, read through Consuelo's detailed statement. His professional expression gradually shifted from concerned to grave to something approaching genuine shock. "Kenneth, this isn't just attempted murder. This is conspiracy to commit murder, financial fraud, signature forgery, elder financial abuse. And because Greg used interstate banking systems to move the stolen money," he looked up at me directly, "this crosses state lines. This is federal jurisdiction. I know. You want to prosecute? Fully? I want complete justice. Full legal justice. I want them formally charged, properly tried, and legally convicted. And I want the evidence so airtight that no defense attorney in the entire country could create even a shadow of reasonable doubt." Colin nodded slowly, understanding the full weight of what I was asking. "Then we need to involve law enforcement immediately. Charleston Police Department and FBI. The financial crimes automatically make it federal jurisdiction. Kenneth, are you fully prepared for what comes next? This will utterly destroy your relationship with your son. Forever. He destroyed it the moment he decided to have me killed." "Fair enough." Colin started making detailed notes on his legal pad. "We'll need to move very carefully. If they suspect even for a moment that you know what they've done, they might run. Or worse, they might try again using different methods. Can you maintain the pretense a bit longer?" "How much longer?" 2 weeks minimum, maybe 3. Long enough for the FBI to build their complete case, obtain all necessary warrants, coordinate properly with Charleston PD. We do this absolutely right, Kenneth. One shot. No mistakes. No appeals based on procedural errors." I agreed. 3 more weeks of living in the same house as my would-be murderers. 3 weeks of playing the oblivious, grateful victim, while the legal trap slowly, inexorably closed around them. But first, I had to come home from Rome. May 30th, 3 p.m. I texted Greg from my phone. Landing soon. Can't wait to tell you about the Colosseum. Absolutely incredible. What an amazing gift. Thank you both so much. I waited exactly 1 hour, then called a taxi to Robert's back entrance. Had the driver take me on a circuitous route past the airport road, then finally to my own street. I even had my Rome luggage with me. I'd actually packed it properly after all. Every detail mattered. The taxi pulled up directly in front of my house at precisely 4:47 p.m. I paid the driver with cash, tipped generously, grabbed my obviously well-traveled suitcase, and walked up the front path. Used my house keys to unlock the door. "Hello? I'm home. Back from Rome." Dead silence. Then sudden footsteps thundering down the stairs. Ava appeared in the hallway first, face absolutely white, eyes huge and disbelieving. She looked exactly like someone who'd just seen a corpse climb out of its grave and walk through the front door, which from her guilty perspective, she essentially had. "Kenneth," her voice actually cracked. You're back? Already?" "Of course I'm back. Flight landed about an hour early, actually. Rome was absolutely incredible, Ava. Just incredible. I took hundreds of pictures." I smiled warmly, playing my assigned role perfectly. "Where's Greg? I want to tell you both all about it." He's... Greg!" She practically shouted up the stairs. My son appeared at the top of the staircase behind her. Exact same expression, pale, shocked, fundamentally confused, like his brain simply couldn't process what his eyes were clearly seeing. "Dad, how was the trip?" "Wonderful. The Hotel de Russie was absolutely spectacular. 5 stars barely describes it. And the Colosseum..." I shook my head, still smiling broadly. "I'm so grateful to both of you. Truly. But I have to admit, I'm completely exhausted. That's a very long flight for a man my age." I chuckled self-deprecatingly. "I'm going to go unpack and rest for a bit. We can talk much more at dinner? Maybe I'll show you some photos." "Sure, yes. Dinner." Ava's voice sounded completely mechanical, like a broken recording. I walked directly past them both, pulling my wheeled suitcase, climbed the stairs with deliberate slowness, went to my bedroom, closed and locked the door quietly. Only then, alone in my room, did I allow myself a cold, satisfied smile. Downstairs, I could hear frantic whispering, starting immediately. Ava's voice, sharp and panicked. Greg's, confused and genuinely scared. They were desperately trying to understand. What had gone catastrophically wrong? Where was my body? Had Randy and Dean actually completed the job as paid? How was I standing in their house, alive and chatting about tourist attractions? I unpacked slowly and methodically, hung up clothes I'd never actually worn in Rome, carefully arranged toiletries I'd never used, all the elaborate props of an expensive trip that had never actually happened. Dinner that evening was absolutely surreal. Greg barely touched his food. Ava kept watching me intently like I might suddenly vanish into thin air. Every single time I casually mentioned Rome, the beautiful fountains, the amazing pasta, the stunning ancient ruins, I could literally see her mind desperately working, trying frantically to reconcile the completely impossible. "Did you, have any problems during the trip? Any trouble at all?" Greg finally asked. "Trouble? No, everything was absolutely perfect. Why do you ask?" "Just, traveling internationally alone at your age. We were a bit worried." "I'm 68, not 90, I said mildly, with just a touch of gentle humor. "Besides, I felt perfectly safe the entire time. Rome's very civilized." Ava's fork clattered loudly against her plate. After dinner, they disappeared immediately to their bedroom. I could hear Ava's voice through the walls, angry and accusatory now, phone calls being made. She was probably trying desperately to reach Randy and Dean, demanding answers, demanding explanations. She wouldn't get any useful answers. Charlie had already discreetly tipped off his primary contact in the Charleston PD. Randy and Dean were now being actively watched, their phones carefully monitored. Every single call Ava made to them was being digitally recorded for evidence. I sat in my locked study and meticulously updated my evidence file, added detailed notes about their specific reactions, their revealing questions, their obvious, barely concealed panic. Prosecutors have a term for it: consciousness of guilt, the specific behavior patterns that clearly reveal a defendant knows they've committed a serious crime. And Greg and Ava were displaying textbook examples beautifully. Over the next 2 weeks, I carefully watched them unravel. Ava grew visibly thinner, more brittle, more paranoid. Greg jumped noticeably at every unexpected sound. They whispered constantly in corners, made furtive phone calls with doors closed, checked the windows obsessively, watching for something. They knew something had gone catastrophically wrong. They just didn't know what, or how, or when the inevitable other shoe would finally drop. The perfect beauty of it? I didn't have to do anything at all. Just exist. Just live my completely normal life in my own house. Yeah, every single day I remained alive was irrefutable evidence of their failure. Every meal we shared together was a constant reminder that their supposedly perfect plan had somehow, impossibly, mysteriously fallen apart. And all the while, the FBI was systematically building its airtight case, meticulously documenting the phone calls, professionally analyzing my video evidence, interviewing Randy Sumner extensively, who, suddenly facing 30 years minimum for murder for hire, was very interested in negotiating a reduced sentence through cooperation. June 15th, Detective Michael Torres called Colin directly. The arrest warrants were ready, all properly signed. Tomorrow morning, they'd move. I lay in bed that night, staring at the dark ceiling. Tomorrow, it would all come out into the open. Tomorrow, my son would be arrested by federal agents. Tomorrow, the truth would stop being my private secret and become official public record. Part of me, a small part, buried very deep, grieved for the son I'd thought I had. The boy who'd played catch in the backyard, who'd graduated college with honors, who'd gotten married while I stood proudly beside him. That son had never really existed, or if he had, he'd been completely replaced by a stranger who'd looked directly at his own father and seen only money, only opportunity, only a life to be ended. I didn't sleep, but I was ready. Tomorrow, justice would finally begin. The next 2 weeks were theater, pure calculated theater. I played my role perfectly. The oblivious old man, grateful for his family, happy to be alive after his wonderful Roman vacation. I showed Greg and Ava my photos from Rome, carefully selected stock images I downloaded, talked about the Colosseum, the Trevi Fountain, the incredible pasta, watched their faces as they tried to smile, tried to understand how their perfect plan had failed. Meanwhile, Colin and Charlie were working with law enforcement, building the case, making it airtight. June 15th, Detective Michael Torres, a Charleston PD investigator Colin knew well, obtained the warrants. Search warrant for Greg and Ava's belongings. Arrest warrants for all 4 conspirators. Torres was methodical. 42 years old. 20 years on the force. He'd handled major cases before. He called Colin that evening. We've also got Randy Sumner talking. He's looking at 30 years for murder for hire. He's suddenly very interested in cooperation. What's he saying? Everything. Ava Harrison hired him and Dean Walker for $25,000. $12,500 up front, $12,500 on completion. The plan was simple. Break in while Kenneth was supposedly in Rome, strangle him, wrap the body in the carpet she'd left in the garage, dump it in the Congaree swamp. Remote area, body might not surface for weeks, if ever. Everyone would assume Kenneth vanished in Rome. Old man, foreign country, got lost, had a stroke, fell in the Tiber. By the time anyone questioned it, the trail would be ice cold. Professional, thorough, and it would have worked perfectly if Consuelo hadn't overheard that phone call. June 20th, dawn. I woke to my alarm at 5:30 a.m., made coffee, sat in my study reviewing the timeline one final time. By 7 a.m., I was ready. At 7:43 a.m. precisely, I heard vehicles pulling up outside. I walked to the window. 4 unmarked police cars, 2 FBI vehicles. Detective Torres stepped out first, followed by Agent Maria Garcia from the FBI's Financial Crimes Division. They'd brought backup, 8 officers total. This was it. I opened my front door before they could knock. Detective Torres. Agent Garcia, please come in. Torres nodded. Mr. Harrison, thank you for your cooperation. We have warrants to search the premises and to arrest Gregory and Ava Harrison. Of course. They're upstairs. Bedroom at the end of the hall. I stepped aside, watched as 6 officers moved up the stairs with practiced efficiency. 30 seconds later, I heard Ava's voice, shrill, panicked. What is this? You can't just... Ava Harrison, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, attempted murder, financial fraud, and forgery. Torres's voice was flat, professional. Gregory Harrison, you're under arrest as an accomplice to these crimes and for wire fraud. More shouting. Greg's voice, confused, scared. Ava's, getting louder, more desperate. They brought them downstairs in handcuffs. Greg was pale, shaking, still in his pajamas. Ava wore a silk robe, her hair disheveled, but her eyes were sharp, calculating, looking for an angle, an escape. Those eyes landed on me. You. Her voice was pure venom. You did this. You were supposed to be... Dead? I finished calmly. Yes, I know. $25,000, wasn't it? That's what you paid Randy Sumner and Dean Walker to murder me. Her face went white. Greg turned to stare at me. Dad, I don't... What is she talking about? Don't play stupid now, Greg. You were there. You stood on the porch and watched them carry out that carpet. The carpet that was supposed to have my body wrapped inside it. I didn't know. She said they were just... He stopped, realizing he was confirming he'd been there. Agent Garcia stepped forward. We have video evidence, phone records, financial transactions, Randy Sumner's full confession, and forensic evidence from the carpet you kept in your garage. DNA from both hired men. This case is airtight. Ava's eyes blazed at me. You were supposed to die. That was the plan. It was perfect. How did I survive? I smiled coldly. I never left Charleston. I watched from across the street while your hired killers carried out that carpet. Recorded everything. Every face. Every license plate. Every incriminating moment. She lunged toward me. 2 officers grabbed her immediately, pulled her back. You old fool! You should have died. This house should be mine. That money should be mine. You don't deserve any of it. But I earned it, I said quietly. That's the difference between us, Ava. I earned everything I have. You just wanted to take it. Torres cleared his throat. That's enough. Let's go. They led them toward the door. Greg was crying now, openly sobbing. Dad, please. I'm sorry. I didn't want to do it. She made me. She said we had no choice. The debts. The pressure. I looked at my son, my only child. The boy I'd raised, educated, tried to teach right from wrong. You had a choice, Greg. You've always had choices. You chose this. His face crumpled. They loaded them into separate vehicles. Standard procedure for co-conspirators. Keep them apart. Prevent them from coordinating stories. As the cars pulled away, Colin emerged from where he'd been waiting in his own vehicle, documenting everything per my request. Well, he said, that's done. That's phase 1, I corrected. Now comes the trial. He nodded. Randy Sumner's cooperation is gold, and the FBI's financial investigation found even more. Greg was running a money laundering scheme through accounts in 3 states. Wire fraud, interstate commerce, it's all federal now. Good. Kenneth, Colin's voice was gentle. Are you all right? I considered the question, watched the police cars disappear around the corner. Ask me after the sentencing. September 2025, 4 months later. The trial took 3 weeks. Federal courthouse, downtown Charleston. The prosecution presented their case with devastating precision. The video I'd recorded showing Randy and Dean carrying the carpet. Phone records documenting 12 calls between Ava and Randy over 3 weeks. Financial records showing the $12,500 payment. Randy Sumner's detailed testimony about the murder-for-hire arrangement. Consuelo's testimony about the overheard phone call. The carpet itself, with DNA evidence from both hired killers. Then the financial crimes. FBI forensic accountants had traced everything. The $67,000 Ava stole through forged signatures. Greg's money laundering scheme involving accounts in 3 states. Wire fraud. Interstate commerce violations. It kept adding up. Ava's defense attorney tried. Argued Randy's testimony was unreliable, that he was lying to reduce his sentence. Suggested the video could have been staged. Claimed Ava was being framed. But the evidence was overwhelming. Greg's attorney took a different approach. Full admission, plea for leniency. Greg took the stand sobbing, explaining how he'd lost his job, fallen into debt, felt trapped, how Ava had pressured him, convinced him this was the only way. The jury wasn't moved. October 8th, 2025. Sentencing day. I sat in the courtroom's second row, exactly where I'd sat every day of the trial. Colin beside me, Consuelo behind us. Judge Patricia Morrison reviewed the pre-sentencing reports. Stern woman, late 50s, 20 years on the federal bench. Ava Harrison, please rise. Ava stood. She'd lost weight during custody, face gaunt, skin sallow, but her eyes still held that calculating hardness. The court has reviewed all evidence and testimony. You orchestrated an elaborate murder-for-hire plot against your father-in-law. You stole $67,000 through forgery. You showed no remorse, no recognition of the severity of your crimes. Judge Morrison paused. For conspiracy to commit murder, I sentence you to 20 years in federal prison. For attempted murder, 8 years consecutive. For wire fraud and forgery, 5 years consecutive. Total, 33 years without possibility of parole for 25 years. Ava's face barely moved. She'd expected this. Gregory Harrison, please rise. Greg stood slowly. He looked broken, shoulders slumped, eyes red. Mr. Harrison, you were complicit in the murder plot against your own father. You participated willingly. You stood by as hired killers carried what you believed was your father's body. Additionally, you ran a money laundering operation for 18 months. The judge's voice softened slightly, not with sympathy, but with pity. For accessory to attempted murder, 10 years in federal prison. For wire fraud and money laundering, 8 years consecutive. Total, 18 years. Greg's knees buckled. Officers steadied him. Randy Sumner and Dean Walker, in exchange for your cooperation, your sentences are reduced. Mr. Sumner, 12 years. Mr. Walker, 10 years. The gavel came down. Court is adjourned. Officers moved to escort the defendants out. They'd be transported to different federal facilities within days. As they passed my row, Greg turned toward me, face wet with tears. Dad, please, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I never wanted... I stood, walked to the railing, looked directly into my son's eyes. For 37 years I'd been his father, raised him, taught him, tried to instill values. Somewhere along the way I'd failed, or he'd chosen his own path, maybe both. I spoke quietly, just loud enough for him and Ava to hear. Greed costs more than patience. 6 words, everything they needed to understand. If they'd simply waited, been patient, they would have inherited everything naturally. Instead, their greed, their impatience cost them everything. Freedom, future, life outside prison walls. Ava's face twisted with rage, started to shout. Officers pulled them both away, toward holding cells, toward the transports that would carry them to federal facilities. I turned and walked out. Outside, Charleston's October sun was warm. Beautiful day. Consuelo was waiting. I'd given her a substantial raise and formally made her head of household staff. She'd earned it. Her warning had saved my life. Mr. Harrison, she smiled. Justice is done. Justice is done. We walked to my car. The house was still mine. The money was still mine. The life I'd built was still mine. But more importantly, I was still alive. At 68, I'd been given a second chance most people never get. A chance to see my would-be murderers face consequences. A chance to walk free while they went to prison for decades. I thought about Greg briefly, wondered if he'd use those 18 years to become better or emerge more bitter. Not my problem anymore. I'd done what I could. Raised him, gave him opportunities, tried to teach him right from wrong. His choices after that were his own. I drove home, to my house, my sanctuary, the place they'd tried to take from me. That evening I sat in my study with a glass of wine, good wine, expensive wine, wine I'd earned, and looked out at the Charleston skyline. Somewhere in that city, in holding cells, Greg and Eva were realizing what they'd lost, what their greed had cost them. I raised my glass in a silent toast, to justice, to survival, to patience over greed, and to the next chapter of my life, whatever it might hold. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.